Here's what's coming today on the Woodworking Network podcast.
We also now have a waiting list of industrial painters that want to work at our shop. How many shops have you heard that said they have a waiting list of painters that want to work at their facility?
Welcome to this episode of the Woodworking Network podcast. Join us as we explore the business of woodworking, big and small, and what it takes to succeed. I'm Will Sampson. Today's episode is sponsored by FDMC Magazine. We'll be talking with Derek Degeest, president of Lesta USA, which markets a line of sophisticated self-learning robots for finishing. But first, I want to talk about the robots are here. We've all grown up with the sci-fi trope of the evil robots bent on destruction of the human race. The Terminator movies with the Skynet army of malevolent machines determined to wipe out humanity is probably one of the first images we think of when we consider the dangers of robots. But there have been countless more examples in movies, books, cartoons, TV shows, and short stories. It's no wonder when we think of adding robots to our business, there's some trepidation. I'm conflicted. I love the craft of woodworking, admire beautiful designed and constructed work in wood. At the same time, I also admire efficiency in manufacturing and strive to help companies at all levels adopt practices and equipment that help them to be more profitable and productive without sacrificing quality. Sometimes that leads to robotic solutions. So are today's robots our friends or our enemies? To answer that question, first we need to consider what robots are. While many of those menacing robots of fiction are humanoid creations, very few real robots today look like humans. Most have some kind of articulated motion designed to do specific tasks. In woodworking, those tasks most commonly include moving things such as loading and unloading machines, mostly in stationary locations, but also with gantries or even as part of self-driving vehicles or carts. More sophisticated processes such as sanding and finishing parts are now well within the purview of today's woodworking robots. At the recent AWFS Fair woodworking trade show, robots were all over and gathering crowds of people transfixed as they watched the robots work. It reminded me of the early days of CNC machines in woodworking, where similar crowds huddled around the machines to watch them cut out parts. And I suspect those CNC crowds decades ago had some of the same questions the crowds around robots today have. How much does it cost? What's involved in programming it? What can it really do? How does its productivity compare to human workers? And probably the biggest question, and to some people the most frightening question, how many workers can we replace with this machine? But I'm not sure that last question is really the right question. The issue shouldn't be about replacing existing workers so much as filling in for workers that can't be found and freeing up existing staff to do things that even the most sophisticated robots still can't do. The real question should be, how can robots integrate into a manufacturing operation to maximize not only efficiency, but also the opportunities for growth and even expansion to other markets? A relatively new family of robots is actually designed to work safely and efficiently side by side with human workers. These so-called cobots are intended to enhance human-centered production by automating processes that can be tedious or dangerous for humans alone. I'm reminded of the protective robot in the old Lost in Space television series who was constantly declaring, "Danger, danger, Will Robinson." As robots become more sophisticated, more affordable, more capable, and easier to program, I'll be excited to see the progress. Still, I'm not sure I can let go of those feelings of watching out for Skynet over my shoulder. Before we get to our interview with Derek Degeest, let's pause for a word from our sponsor. FDMC Magazine is your vital source of information to improve your woodworking business, whether it is keeping you apprised of the latest advances in manufacturing, helping you solve your wood technology problems with Gene Wengert, or inspiring you with case histories about successful businesses and best practices. FDMC Magazine is there to be the sharpest business tool in your shop. Learn more and subscribe for free at woodworkingnetwork.com/FDMC. Now let's get to my interview with Derek Degeest, president of Lesta USA, recorded live at the AWFS Fair. Hello everybody, this is Will Sampson from the Woodworking Network, and we are here live in Las Vegas at the AWFS Woodworking Show. And this is another episode of the Woodworking Network podcast. I am really pleased to have as my guest today Derek Degeest, and he is from Lesta USA. And we're going to talk about something that I am really fascinated with, which is the growing use of robotics in woodworking. Welcome to the Woodworking Network podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Will. It's awesome to be honored to be on your show.
Well, it's great fun. The other thing that Derek has gotten here at Las Vegas is, and he's actually wearing a pin for it today, he is one of our 40 under 40 honorees. So this is I think Derek is a great example of the young new energy that is coming up in our industry, and the kind of new technology that they're bringing it. Now, one of the things that's interesting about Derek is that he comes to this not from the woodworking industry, but from the metalworking industry. Can you give folks a little bit of your background of how you got into this?
Yeah, you bet. Well, actually, just us being involved in the robotics and the finishing side came from a need that we had from our own company. So I come from a 3-generation family-owned manufacturing company in steel fabrication. This is where my grandpa and grandma started it. My parents, my dad's been in it, and my brother and my wife is in it as well now. So it's been our family company, and we've been growing in our in the steel fabrication side. And what we did is, as we were evolving, technologies you talk about, as it's been changing. It used to be you could buy a piece of equipment and it would last and nothing new would really happen for almost like, it seemed like a decade. My dad used to say you could buy something and use it for about 10 years and before you'd have to look again and to see something change different. And then over the last, I'd say 10 years though, it would go every 5 years, and then it's every 2 years, and that's like as soon as you buy something now, there's something else better out there.
Yeah.
and then as that's happening, so is the price point and everything is continuing to go up too. And so people are just like, well, where do I jump in? Where do I go? But that's where, as we were getting more into automation, we had to find ways to stay competitive in our industry. And in manufacturing, just like in steel, same as wood, your competition, your people, your customers want it faster, they want more diversity of their part mix changes, and they want it cheaper, and they expect that it'll be perfect. Yes.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yes. And then from your standpoint, I imagine, like everybody else, you couldn't find the people to do that kind of thing anyway, so you had to look at robots.
Well, for us, actually, it started kind of on the opposite end. For us, when we were staying competitive, we wanted to multiply the efforts of our people. And so we wanted to grow through being able to do more with the people that we had. And so before we had to go look for people, we wanted to continue to invest in our people that we had, and then find ways to be able to continue to give them new skills and be able to do more. And so that we wanted to do more with the people that we had to be able to still gain and produce more with the people that we had to invest in them. And so that's what we did on our fabrication side, and we got into robotic welding, and then we started adding some more people as that grew, because that also didn't take jobs away in our robotic welding. We added more welding.
Well, it increased your opportunity value to be able to take on different kinds of work and all with the same number of people.
And it was a different type of work that we were looking for on the robotic welding side versus our manual. And then as that was growing, so thus was increasing the velocity of the parts that we were producing. And then like everything, that the last step on the line is finishing. And so they're the last to grow, but you have to have the volume to be able to do it. And so like, okay, well now we have the volume, and now we're stressing our paint. We knew this was going to happen. Now we need a new solution. and we couldn't find one. We couldn't find the solution that worked. We had hundreds and hundreds of different parts that we make for our job shop industry. We make stuff for like Terex and John Deere, and the Diamond does stuff for forestry industry and utility industry. So we were in a lot of different industries, but as that was growing, we needed to find something to help us there. And so then we found Lesta because we couldn't find it to work. Self-learning robots, never heard of them. What is this? And I thought we knew about robotics. And so we called them up and they said, come see. I'm like, well, take us to your customers. I need to see this running because I know robotics and I've never heard of this. So we went over to Europe and went to probably about 12 different companies throughout Italy and Switzerland, to small 3-man shops to multi-billion-dollar, multi-facility places. And what we were told was impossible had just been made easy and was common practice.
Yeah, I think that we don't know some of the technologies that are taken for granted in other places. So how did that translate to the leap from metal to woodworking?
Well, we brought it back and we put it into our own facility. We built the largest, I think, contract job shop robotic liquid paint line, I think, in North America. And as we were bringing that in, they needed a partner to be able to grow into North America. So we're centrally located in South Dakota in North America. We have fabrication capabilities, we've integrated some of our own robotics, and we have our own software development team. Why don't you make us your integrator? And because we're already building it already, and people are coming to our facility to tour what we're doing. And so he said, we love this idea. And so we opened up Lesta USA after we built our system and finished our NRTL certification for a Class 1 Div 1 robotic environment to make sure we're dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's. And so then we jumped into the metal market and launched at FabTech, which is the big metal side, in 2019. Got a whole bunch of interest in customers and buzz, and started working until COVID happened. And then we kind of kept developing and growing where we could. And then once that happened and opened back up, we started integrating and putting stuff in. And as soon as we could get out and start putting our robotic systems in, and it really helped us become really better at what we do, because we've been on our own since we launched in 2019, remotely getting help, but our team is amazing, and our guys are awesome. Super proud of everything that our team has done, and we can handle, integrate, and support the things that we do. And
that's great, and I think that's really a neat story, that it's sort of a pull operation, that you pulled the Europeans here rather than the Europeans trying to push onto our situation.
Right.
But I want to back up just a little bit here. You had a phrase in there that went by really fast that I think is really crucial to understanding how the robots can work, particularly in woodworking, and that's the self-learning aspect of it, the AI kind of thing going on with these robots. So they actually can learn to do this job by themselves.
They're taught by the painter. So
by the human
robot
painter teaches the robot,
right.
but teaches it not by programming code.
No. So they're built completely different from the ground up. Lesta is completely dedicated to finishing only. So their entire automation, all their technology is pouring into the finishing industry. And so what they did is they built their robot completely different from the ground up. And we made it so that they could disengage their motors and create a weightless learning mode. And from that weightless learning mode, now a painter can take hold of the robot when it's in its weightless mode, and he can take it and he can just paint the part. And so you're teaching the robot and you're painting a part in real time. And so as you take that in there, every nuance, every gun angle, every trigger pull, all the knowledge of how a person processes your complex parts and how they attack it, how they think of it, is being put into the robot. And the robot then becomes an extension of themselves. And so what we've seen is that there's incredible buy-in and engagement from the painters, because that's, it's them, so that is part of them. And so they're in control of the quality that they're being asked to produce. And so we're just giving them a tool to be able to produce it, and then give them time to be able to continue to help their operation get better.
Well, and then doesn't too, using the robots, doesn't it add an efficiency level as far as less overspray and more efficient delivery of the materials and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because now instead of just trying to get through the day, I mean, a person they are so human. They're amazing in what they can do, but it is hard to stay the same all day long. Or as your different painters all spray differently, and so there's a lot of variables there. So now a painter can make their program, teach it what to do, can step back, and it becomes a really good learning tool. Is that they can see, like, there's no way I was that close to that part. Like, you were. And so they're like, oh, well, jeepers, I better. And so I'm going to get back in there. I want to make that better. So they just jump in, do the next part, and then they learn from what they saw, how they were painting, and then they actually can continue to get better at what they do. And so then they step back, they like that, and now you can adjust your fanimization and flow and continue to improve that program over time.
So it's actually educating not just the robot, but it's educating the human painter as well.
At times, yeah.
That's great. I just love it. And you mentioned that you visited European shops that were as small as 3 people using robots. So this is something that's accessible for all sizes of operations too.
That is a real passionate part of Lesta, because we come from general industry and we've seen that, and we felt that pinch of not having a solution and how that feels like. And that's what we want to help painters. We want to help companies be able to add automation there, because without it, it's not sustainable, more or less scalable. And we're bringing back more work. We're reshoring more production. There's furniture companies that are coming back, and it's increasing. And we got to give them the tools and the finishing side to add automation to create a balance. Otherwise, companies, we can't find people, so it becomes not only worrying about sustainable, there's no way that you can scale it.
Yeah. Well, and the situation too with finishing, just from a really basic standpoint, is, let's face it, in all woodworking, finishing is probably, 90% of the value that's perceived by the customer.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the finishing right, it doesn't matter how good the construction or materials underneath that finish are.
Yeah.
So, if you can get a robotic solution that does this, that opens the door to all sorts of more work, and, like you said, using your existing people in other things. And, if you can't find existing people, then maybe the robot can fill in for that too. But it isn't necessarily a human replacement from the total number of folks that you're starting with.
No, and that was, I think, the really cool part. You asked how we got into the wood industry, and I think the really neat part there, it was because of our equipment partners and our system partners. So we started that connection in the metal side. We work with Graco, we work with Kremlin, we have Wagner, and Krauswitz-Berger on some of our glue stuff, and they said, we need you in wood. This has been great, but we need you over here. And so when we saw that the AWFS show was going to happen, we pulled together solutions that we talked to the manufacturers out there of furniture and cabinet and the door industry, and we brought 3 different solutions showing our technology through our self-learning. We also have 2D and 3D scanning for some of our other applications in the door and the cabinet industry, and we brought that here. So we came to the wood industry, because of the need. They saw the need to have this as well, and we, as an industry, have to come together, because we need the finishing side to be able to continue as well, or they won't be able to grow. We can't buy the next CNC routing machine to be able to stack it up if we can't get it out the door. If you don't paint it, you can't ship it. So.
Yeah. And I wanted to re-emphasize that what we're talking about here is not simple finishing. We're talking about complex finishing. This isn't like just spraying flat doors or anything like that. This is talking about spraying furniture parts and things that are three-dimensional and require, basically a 5-axis kind of an approach to things.
We have 6-axis on our robot, and then we also add just how are we going to move our parts? So we've partnered with Prime Heat, and we have some other tow car companies. RSI is another company that we work with, and so we can work with existing conveyor lines, existing cart systems, or if you don't have either of those, We can also look at adding our carousels to be able to rotate. We want to move a part, so the material handling plus a robot, so that we can gain the benefits of them. There's all kinds of scalable solutions that are very flexible. We can start on a small level and continue to grow, or we can go into larger systems. So it's very adaptable to meet where the companies are at.
And you're going to have a consistent result from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, instead of somebody getting tired after spending 8 hours trying to move a spray gun around.
It's true, but they talk about the skills gap and the labor shortage, and so part of that, when I'm talking to customers and talking to people out here throughout the last couple of days, they're worried about where they can't find them, but they're worried about keeping the ones they have. So if we can take them, if we know that if we're hard to be able to keep up with the production right now, we can't take them off of the line to be able to take them somewhere else to learn something, to be able to come back with a new, or shut production down to be able to do it. So if we can give them a tool to use on the production floor, so to keep their painters and that knowledge on the floor, and to give them to be able to create time. Now we also have that baby boomer generation. We got guys that are thinking that they may not be able to keep going. We give them that tool so they get out of the booth, take some of the wear and tear off, and let them use that knowledge to improve that system and make their process better. And now you got the next upcoming generation can now see this as a potential career opportunity instead of just getting a job. And so it can attract the next generation, which we're all talking about trying to find a way to do. And we're an example of that ourselves, because I went from worrying about if our painter is going to call in sick because his kid couldn't go to school, or if he's what happens when he goes on vacation this summer. I've got certain things that only he can do because of his knowledge and his skill set, where now he's made hundreds and hundreds of programs himself. Our painter, who was in automotive, went into industrial painting, made all of our robotic programs, and then we have another guy that was on the system that learned how to use the system, and now he can go on vacation if one of his kids is sick and he has to stay home. We're still running the same production, and we're meeting all of our trucks. And then besides that, we also now have a waiting list of industrial painters that want to work at our shop. How many shops have you heard that said they have a waiting list of painters that want to work at their facility?
That's incredible.
So it can happen. It can happen. It can change. We can talk about the problem, but until we actually tackle it, it can change. And I think we're an example of how that can happen.
This is great. Well, and I think that what you're saying too helps a lot of folks are afraid of the technology and what it's going to do to change their operation, or what it's going to do as far as having to learn, what's the learning curve with programming. It sounds like this is a lot easier because the guy can basically grab the robot arm and just teach it, and it's not a case where he's got to learn a whole bunch of code or programming or anything like that.
It's not a magic bullet, though, and we're not here to say there are applications where flat lines are absolutely amazing. Now, but then they got the drawers, so we can help with drawers. And then, or we can look at our furniture side. We can help with furniture, but maybe you don't do all of it. Maybe 80% of it can happen. Or we can do the clear, or we can do the top coat to start. Take that, automate the thing that's happening the same every time. Get them out of there, the monotonous job, or the job that's tedious that they're going to burn out on, and now let them use their artistry and craftsmanship to work on the stains and the glazes, or some of the stuff that really adds that value and that artistry into your product, and then let the robot help do the part that makes sense.
Well, and then again, that goes back to opportunity value, because then they'd be able to offer those as potentially new products, or more extensive marketing of those kinds of things, and change whole product lines or target markets so that they could upscale what they're selling. There's lots of potential there. Again, this automation thing, I know it's really scary to a lot of shops, and they're saying, that's somehow not craftsmanship anymore. But what you're telling me, it sounds like it's freeing up the craftsmen to be craftsmen.
Yeah.
And allowing the work that is not so much craft oriented to be taken care of immediately.
Automate the labor that is repetitive, that you have a hard time filling. Get your craftsmen out doing the stuff that really add the value to your product that the people see. And then that's where then they find more engagement and fulfillment in what they do, because they get to do the part that really matters. And then they feel supported because they have the tools and equipment to be able to do that part instead of just trying to get through the day.
And that's got to be more attractive. That's probably why you have a list of painters wanting to work for you, because they know that they're going to get to do fun stuff instead of...
They get to think. Yeah. Everything they do is more higher level. So they're working on they're solving problems, they're looking at their process, or they're seeing themselves as adding value to what they're doing.
Great. Well, I think you're adding value to this industry, even though you're new to the woodworking industry, and I appreciate you coming over to talk about it. Again, it's Lesta USA, and finishing robots is definitely worth looking into. And I wish you all the luck in the world, and best regards going forward. One of these days I'll get up to your place in South Dakota and check it out.
That sounds good. Well, we're welcome to have you. So thank you again very much for having me on your podcast today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Derek. That's it for today from the Woodworking Network podcast. We'll have more episodes coming up, and we'll see you online or wherever your podcasts are. Take care. That's it for today. If you're looking for more of our podcasts, you can find all of them at woodworkingnetwork.com/podcasts and in popular podcast channels. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks again to today's sponsor, FDMC Magazine. If you have a comment or topic you'd like us to explore, contact me at will.sampson@woodworkingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening.